both mental oppression and getting that aha, a busy mind, putting the puzzle pieces together. Grace and disgrace, politeness and rudeness, attentive listening or not listening at all. These are all pressures and qualities that this cycle of the human design weather for September 9th to 14th, 2025 will bring. Hello there. I'm Margot Fraser, your guide through the cosmic weather as a certified human design professional through the International Human Design School and an intuitive coach. I'm on a mission to help you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. In this podcast, Human Design, Whether or Not, we'll explore the conditioning influences of the planetary motions, the transit field. I don't want you reacting and being pulled off track by these forces. So this will help you to navigate the cycle, staying true to your authentic nature and taking advantage of opportunities when correct for you. Now, I've pre-recorded this because I am in the last 5 days of a 17-day canoe trip in real time now. I'm just going to be leaving one of my favorite lakes and starting the process of paddling out of the area. So back to my start point. All right, well, let's get into the weather for this cycle. It begins on September 9th at 4:20 a.m. and goes until September 14th at 11:05 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, it's coming in September 9th at 10:20 a.m., going until September 15th at 5:05 a.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun-Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. We have 2 awareness center activations this cycle, and it's going to be extra intense with these themes in the Sun-Earth positions also being in the south and north nodes of the moon. So they will be somewhat familiar in that way because we've had those nodes of the moon in these gates for a while now. We have the sun moving into gate 47, the gate of realizing and oppression in the Ajna center. That's the second triangle from the top and the seat of the mind. It's your mental awareness center. So all the mind's processes, conceptualizing, analyzing, rationalizing, comparing, and so on. This is part of the collective abstract experiential circuitry that's all about making sense of the past so that we can learn and gain the wisdom of experience. Last cycle, we had its electromagnetic gate 64 in the head center, the trait of confusion, bringing that pressure to make sense. Now we move one step down into the process, into the Ajna center, that actual mental process of trying to relieve that confusion. Gate 64 stores our memories as images, but when they come into the ajna, they aren't in any order. So it's quite an oppressive and difficult process. It's like getting pieces from a really hard puzzle given to you and trying to figure out how they all go together and not knowing how many pieces are missing. But when you finally do put them all together, you get that big aha, eureka, that realization. The keynote for this trait says a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength or both. Internal weakness is speaking to the fact that you haven't made sense of it yet. External strength is the pressure that can be coming from the outside to make sense of something. Someone else bringing in their confusion, for example. A restrictive and adverse state, yeah, your mind's going to be working on making sense of it. At a macro level, it's about making sense out of the experience of being human, making sense of life itself. There's a lot of value in this process. Potential opportunities that this brings, well, there's the potential for the awareness to recognize what does make sense or not. You could have that aha, that, I got it. Ultimately, this process can help you to see what's wrong so that you can figure out what might be right, what doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. No, no, that just doesn't make sense. The mind's going through its process. No, that doesn't make sense. It's going to keep working on it until, aha, yeah, I've got it. The caution here, often instead of trying to make sense of something for the wisdom and lessons for ourselves, we're trying to figure out who or what to blame. So watch that. All of the abstract experiential circuitry is rooted in emotionality. And there's always this underlying lower level side, let's call it, of, let's figure it out so we know who to blame here. There could be anxiety here that you'll never get the realization that it will never make sense, or you're never going to be able to figure out. And there actually are some things in life that will never make sense. And we need to learn to let those ones go and stop wasting mental energy on them. Also, as I mentioned, the abstract process is related to the emotional system, which means it takes time. Watch for replaying past emotional events over and over again, trying to force the making sense process. It can have you jumping to conclusions about what happened when you actually might not have the full picture yet. This is only one part of the mental abstract process. The realization still has to become an idea that can stimulate others in gate 11. That's where this energy goes next. That's the trait of ideas. So there's still a restrictive nature here. Remember that there are no facts associated with the abstract process. It's beliefs that eventually come out and are articulated through the gate 56 in the throat center. Gate 47 is being grounded in the Earth's position. Gate 22, the trait of openness and of grace or disgrace in the solar plexus center, the emotional center. This is part of the individual circuitry. Individual traits always bring the potential for a pulse of knowing that could be mutative, could bring something new to, in this case, social interaction. And it can be very empowering that way. It is in the emotional center, the solar plexus center, that's both a motor, the motor that generates the ups and downs of the emotional wave, and an awareness center, our emotional intelligence. That tells us it's a trait that has its ups and downs. The individual wave is a spike wave. It can seem very even emotionally. And then when triggered, it can spike way up into hope or joy, or down into pain or sorrow. It can erupt out into laughter or into tears. You can experience this outburst of laughter or tears this cycle. And if you normally don't have this trait, you might be wondering what's going on. Yep, it could be this that's playing a part here. With that spike wave, there's a moodiness that comes with this frequency. It's part of the only social channel in the individual circuitry. So you might find that you're more open or closed to being social depending on your mood. And if you're in a bad mood, well, it might be best to keep to yourself so that mood doesn't get splattered all over others. It will pass in time. This is the trait of grace, allowing others to go first, waiting for the right time to release that mutation. Or disgrace, being rude, interrupting, not truly listening. In its high form, this trait has the power to empower attentiveness. Attentiveness in yourself to others, and attentiveness in others to you. This is grace, being open to listen and being attentive in that. Remember that individual circuitry is here to bring through mutation, something new. How can you get the mutation out if nobody will listen? That's the power that this trait brings. It's so important that if you have this trait in your own design, that you do wait to hear out others first and then speak. Its very foundation is in politeness. No, you go ahead. It's all right. You go ahead. You go first. No, you go. It's okay. All right. And if you don't have this in your design, that grace, that politeness, it may be an opportunity to foster that in a greater way. This is the gait of the left ear that hears in a wave. What you will take in will depend on where you are in the wave. You'll hear different things. That's why you have to, if you have this trait in your design, often listen to things multiple times, because what you take in will be dependent on where you are. But over time, you can build up a very rich and nuanced understanding from what you take in. At the same time, in learning situations, you're likely going to need to hear things again because of that, taking in different things at different times, depending on where you are in the wave. Its keynote says a quality of behavior best suited in handling mundane and trivial situations. If you're being polite and letting others go first, you're going to hear a lot of trivial things. You're going to have to be polite in listening to this before you can get your chance to express and really be heard. This is what grace allows. The potential opportunities that this brings, well, you may notice that you're more attuned to the acoustics of things, what's beautiful to you and what's not, the pitch and the tone. Listening to music that you're in the mood for can be really wonderful during this cycle. This trait can bring passion and romance through that attentiveness. You may have the opportunity to express your passion, your emotional spirit. The caution, well, if the polarity plays out and the detriment is often what we see happen, it's going to be disgraceful, and we'll have things like cutting other people off instead of that attentiveness, people talking over one another and interrupting, not listening. With the North Node already in this gate, we've already been seeing some of this, and it's definitely going to be more intense this cycle. Every individual trait can carry melancholy. It can drop into melancholy. And here the potential melancholy is that there's nothing worth listening to. While it can listen to the mundane and the trivial, what this trait is really listening for is the passion of the other. And when the expression does come out from this gate, it's usually with passion. It's expressing your emotional spirit. If you do get triggered into this melancholy, do your best to channel it into your creative endeavors. Listening to music that you're in the mood for can also be helpful for moving through it. When we look at these Sun-Earth positions together, your attentive listening may help you to make sense and resolve confusion. The attentive conversations you have with others may be about who to blame for whatever situations you're discussing. Rudeness and impoliteness may degrade further into the blame game and create confusion. All right, let's move to the channels now. When the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. We have a medium-term channel that's a carryover from our last cycle. It's going to come to completion on September 11th at 3:05 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, 9:05 a.m. UTC. Our sun's position, gate 47, has its electromagnetic present, gate 64, the trait of confusion in the head center. That's being activated by Mercury. Together, they create the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity. This is a collective abstract channel, bringing the mental pressure to make sense by putting the puzzle pieces together to determine how an experience fits into the movie of your life. As we mentioned already, it's a tough process. It takes time to get clarity and then get those ahas, which is why gate 47 is both oppression and realization. With Mercury sitting in that gate 64 position, it may bring a lot of additional sharing. It's already collective. It's already about impersonal sharing, but Mercury is just going to add a little amplification of that, talking about our confusion, what we've made sense of or not, what our realizations and our ahas are. As the keynote says, it does bring a busy mind. So just a reminder that any decisions you make should be from your strategy and authority, not from your mind. Expect, though, that busy mind, and it may perhaps make it a little more difficult to stay grounded and connected to the wisdom of your body. At the same time, if you stay aligned with your strategy and authority, there's the potential for increased awareness and ability to share those ahas and realizations with others when invited in a way that may support them. And you may gain from what comes through others. Then we have 4 channels being created by transits of the moon. Now, these are just tasters. They're not with us for very long because the moon only activates a gate or a trait for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. The first 3 channels that we have come boom, 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 one right after another. One leads right into the next. So first up, September 9th at 1:37 p.m., going until 10:52 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's September 9th, starting at 7:37 p.m., going until September 10th at 4:52 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 51, the trait of shock in the ego center, the heart center, the motor that brings willpower. It's connecting with gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence, and universal love, or the polarity, being activated by both Neptune and Saturn in the G center. That's the center that's associated with love, identity, and direction in life. Together, they're creating the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. This is an individual channel that can bring a pulse of knowing of what leap into the unknown to take to stretch yourself, initiating you into a new sense of self, coming more deeply into yourself through that, and being centered in that. This can be very empowering and support you in accepting yourself as you are. That's its opportunity to really kind of stretch your limits. There's also an opportunity it brings to learn how to adapt to shock. The caution, though, and what we most often see in the not self world is that it brings competitiveness, the design of needing to be first. But instead of being competitive with yourself, it's being competitive with everyone else out of that ego. All right, then we move right in on September 9th at 10:52 p.m., going until September 10th at 8:06 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, September 10th at 4:52 a.m. until 2:06 p.m. Moon moves into gate 42, the trait of completion and growth in the sacral center. That's connecting with Jupiter's position, gate 53, the trait of beginnings and development in the root center. Together, they're creating the abstract experiential channel of maturation, a design of balanced development. This is about going through cycles of beginnings, middles, and ends towards gaining wisdom and growth. It brings a cyclical nature to every other trait. The opportunity is to start something new and take that next step or bring something to completion. Of course, if you're not following your strategy and authority, you could end up doing any of those things at the wrong time. So just watch for that. The last of our 3 in a row comes in on September 10th at 8:06 a.m., going until 5:21 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. September 10th at 2:06 p.m. to 11:21 p.m. UTC. We've got the moon moving now into gate 3, the trait of ordering in the sacral center, connecting with its electromagnetic gate 60, the trait of limitation in the root center, being activated by Pluto. Together, they create the channel of mutation, a design of energy that fluctuates and initiates. Here we have the old, represented by gate 60, meeting the new, represented by gate 3. If the pulse comes through, there's the potential to break out of the limitations of the old and into something new. That's going to bring the need to reorder things, and it tends to be a chaotic process. So there's the potential opportunity for something new to come through, for some breakthrough. Just keep in mind that you have no control over when or if the pulse will come through. All the individual circuitry operates in a pulse. The caution is that even if the pulse does come through, you still have to use your own strategy and authority to determine if the change is really correct for you. Finally, we have on September 14th at 5:51 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, UTC, that's September 14th at 11:51 a.m. until 9:30 p.m., the moon moving into gate 12, the trait of caution in the throat center. That's connecting with both our Earth's position and the north node of the moon, gate 22, the trait of grace. Together, they create the channel of openness, a design of a social being. That expression in gate 12 is empowered by the emotional motor and possible awareness of gate 22. This channel brings a pressure to be socially open or closed. It can bring the intensity of emotions to the mood, whether up or down, the romance, the passion. It can shift others' emotion. That's its mutative quality. It's the only social channel in the individual circuitry, and it brings the possibility of bringing your unique expression to social interactions in a way that does mutate them, shifts them, changes them, and to be open in a graceful way to others. So we've got that energy that we talked about with that gate 22, that emotionality, that attentiveness, all that's taken in, moving up the spirit of the emotions, moving up to the throat now and being able to express out. The caution is that if you pulse down in the mood, just like we talked about with gate 22, you may want to be more socially closed rather than bringing that bad mood to a social interaction. There can be emotional enthusiasm that emerges from this, but it can be volatile. So there can also be the rudeness that we talked about can be in that gate 22, explosively coming out of the throat. It's the gate of caution that can hold back, but it can also be the gate of incaution that just blurts out its mood, no matter what's going on. All right. That brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So the not self mind could start to think that they're part of you when it's something that you actually don't have in your design. And then when that transit finally moves on, that can be quite confusing to the not self mind. All right, we have 3 of the activated gates changing lines this cycle. And interestingly, all those line changes are happening on September 12th. The north node of the moon is in gate 22, the individual trait of grace or disgrace, attentive listening or not. We've talked a lot about it already as the Earth's position. It's in line 2 called charm school, so no change here. It's bringing an environment where we may see this real attentiveness to each other and openness to socializing. Although the substance of the talk itself can be more superficial, but still, it can open up opportunities to meet new people. Or we could see the detriment of closing off to those that grab your attention and not wanting to interact with them. Gate 47, it's in line 2 called ambition. This brings an environment of keeping busy in the present so that we don't have to deal with trying to make sense of the past. The question is what you or they're being busy with of value? We really got to use strategy and authority to guide us. Jupiter, with its quality of expansion, is in gate 53, the trait of beginnings and development in the root center. It's part of the abstract experiential circuitry and brings that pressure to begin a new experience and the potential to see that experience through to its end. Now, it starts in line 5 called assertion. I mentioned last cycle that the exaltation is not present in the world right now because it's activated by Neptune. And Neptune, well, it takes a long time to go through all of the gates, more than a lifetime. So there's no one alive with this activated, with this line activated, this exaltation activated in the world right now. And it's going to be decades before Neptune transits into that gate again. So all we can talk about here really is the detriment. This is where starting something will meet with opposing forces. So you could say, I'm going this way, I'm starting this, or we need to develop this. And someone else says, no, that's not the way, it's this way. We need to develop that. It creates this struggle. The exaltation of balanced development that can pull even those opposed along into starting and moving through an experience together isn't there. We have unbalanced development where we're meeting polarities that can slow development down and create this polarization. On September 12th, Jupiter will move into line 6 called phasing. Now, here we have the opposite effect. Just like we didn't have the exaltation of line 5 present because of the Neptune activation, Pluto activates the detriment of line 6. So there's no one in the world right now left that carries it. So we only have, in this case, the exaltation present. And again, it was going to be many, many decades before the detriment will be in the field. So overall, it does provide a nice balance to the detriment that we have in Neptune, which is actually both in line 1 and line 5, that will have people jumping in and out of experiences instead of sticking with it to the end. Now, this line is called, as I mentioned, phasing, and the exaltation that we do have is the successful utilization of the completion of a stage in development that by its evident success and value can be used as an example to attract support for the next stage. The energy to attract support for beginnings based on the success of the past. People can see, you made it through a stage and they're ready to support you going forward based on that success. Now, 6 lines, well, 6 lines don't start anything unless they can see they can get through the full process, that it's almost guaranteed, the full process of the abstract experiential circuitry. The 6th line is the role model line. And when it does see that it will be able to complete a cycle and go through it, that can be very inspiring to others. But there'll always be this almost like a stagnancy there, because it can take some time to find that thing that, yes, I can go all the way through this and get to the end. Jupiter is expanding this pressure to start a new experience that can be seen through and to be able to inspire others through that. Saturn and Neptune, they're both sitting in gate 25. They've been there for quite a while now. The trait of the spirit of the self, innocence, and universal love, or the polarity. Neptune continues to sit in line 4, and Saturn's in line 2 at the start of the cycle. And I've talked about those lines in previous cycles. So I think let's look at what's happening on September 12th when Saturn moves into line 1 and Neptune moves into line 3. Both of them are in retrograde. Neptune's line 3 is called sensibility, and it has a developmental theme that says the recognition that innocent action does not in itself guarantee success. It can bring the power of the spirit to withstand failure and shock, but there can also be the potential loss of spirit through failure and shock. Neptune can veil and unveil. It can bring both illusion and also a psychic attunement. So with this line, Neptune may bring that deeper attunement to that deeper understanding that innocent action brings what it brings. And you can just stay centered in yourself out of that. Or it could heighten the illusion of failure that breaks the spirit. Saturn, with its limitations and consequences, moves into line 1 called selflessness. It has a developmental theme that says motiveless action. The exaltation says the universalization of activity, psychic attunement that it is its own reward, the potential for centering through attunement to challenges. The detriment says a tendency to publicize one's selflessness, The insecurity of the self manifested in times of challenge. Saturn's power and discipline could help you to maintain your centering and stay in motiveless action, or it could amplify the egoic nature and need to have others recognize what you did or what they did when they really didn't have to. I did this, I did this. I didn't have to, but I did it. Right? We're out of motivelessness in that case. Uranus, with its unusualness, its rebellion and revolutionary nature, is sitting in gate 20, the individual trait of the now in the throat center. Its voice is I am now. It continues to be in line 2, called the dogmatist, one who expresses their opinions in a very strong and inflexible way, as if they are undeniable truths, and are very resistant to considering other perspectives. This brings a quality of expressing a very narrow perspective. While gate 20 can be in the now and see what's there, in line 2, it's very narrow. It's not seen out in the periphery. And there'll be a tendency to avoid those who are bringing a different perspective in favor with those who agree with one's position. It can also enhance following a specialized area where you want that narrow perspective. So that's the benefit of it. However, if there's a lack of wisdom of experience, there can be a very much I know what's best for you now, that kind of quality to it. Well, it's line 2, maybe, but maybe not. Pluto can bring us to our inner truth and rules the larger cosmic cycles. It's in gate 60, the individual trait of limitation and acceptance, also in the root center, in line 6, called rigidity. It brings a frequency that can help you to accept limitations that you come up against and not try to push through them unless you can see that mutation, that moving from old to new, that real change can happen. Or you may feel a real agitation and even a sense of depression in being limited. The restraint is there, and you have to be restrained, but boy, you don't like it. I see when I look at this overall, these long-term transits bringing a more internalized activity. Everything except Jupiter and Pluto are in lines 1, 2, or 3 that tend to be more internal. And then you've got Pluto and Jupiter in line 6, but they're not going to engage unless they can see they can go all the way through the process. So there's kind of a sitting back on the heels with those ones. The biggest pressure, though, is really going to be through the sun, earth, and nodes being in the same gates, with a busy mind trying to make sense and get those ahas, and the grace or disgrace of the 22 through its moods of attentiveness or not, being polite and listening, or rude and provoking. There's very little logic in the field. So a tendency you might see over this cycle is people not really doing their fact checking. And you might fall into that trap as well. So watch for that. Remember that for any of these traits, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you. You can learn from it. But whether there's actually something for you to do with it is according to your own strategy and authority. So don't let it run or puppet you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and just want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the red and the black about, the different geometric shapes, the general themes of the lines, and so on, feel free to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human-design. Okay, we continue with the theme of a busy mind that we had last cycle, trying to make sense, especially for those of you that have an undefined ajna center. It's going to be amplified. There could be some real ahas that you get that support others and that others express that can help you. Just make sure that you're not making decisions from the mind. There's an opportunity to really listen and to be heard, although expect to see that polarity of rudeness and not listening play out in the world. All right. Have a great cycle, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.